Hey everybody! So I thought I would generate enthusiasm for investors or anybody else who wants to team up to help get my book published via self-publishing. So I thought that perhaps I should go ahead and give you a little taste of the book. And that would be me reading the first chapter for free. For free! Do you hear it? For free! So that's what I'm going to do. And there's going to be some technical stuff in here because just so that you understand it a little bit, because it's really going to be hard to understand unless you read a couple of chapters. Okay, so the main character, his name is Joshua. His storyline is 21 years in the past. The beginning storyline is 21 years in the future. I know that's a little complicated, but you'll understand it soon enough. And it follows the story of a man and his son separated by 21 years. That's the basic premise of the overall storyline. Now, the depth of the story is a lot better than that, and we're going to understand some of it. And let me tell you, if you think chapter 1 is going to be awesome, when you get done hearing this, you don't know anything, because the book gets a lot better the more you read it. All right, here we go. The trilogy title is called It Is Likened Unto. The first book, which is the first book in the trilogy, it is titled The Waymaker. This is chapter number 1, Sound the Alarm. Now, this is the storyline of Logos at 21 years in the future, okay? This is the story of the son. By openly proclaiming these words, you are crowned king. Speak them from your heart, and God shall preserve you. Earnestly declare them, and his people shall receive you and keep you. The aged steward of the crown says unto the kneeling young man, this young man's blood is that of the waymaker, full of his finished work's fruit, being fully trained in the ways of a just king, and brought up by the power of love. He rises ready with a full heart and a steady mind. He stands solidly upon his own 2 feet. He turns toward the great multitude of people who stand ready at his back, filling the great throne room. Looking down upon them, he does not see subjects to be commanded, as would any other king, for he knows that they were bought with a price, the price of his father's blood. He looks down upon them with love, knowing that each one is now his brother and his sister. The steward of the crown hands the risen young man a parchment to read aloud unto the people, solidifying his claim to be the king. Knowing the greatness of each word, he bears forth his heart and proclaims, I, Logos, son of Joshua, of the house Servantos, do so swear before the Lord God and his people, that as long as I do live, I shall unwaveringly uphold his standard, at all costs keep his banner flying high, and with all of my given power preserve his ways for all generations to come. As his servant, I am your king. You being his children, I am made your servant. He who does unto you does unto me, and he who does unto me does unto God. From this day until my last day, I do so swear to do his perfect will and to spread his perfect love. The steward of the crown rises from the great throne, taking off the grand golden crown, which has God's name etched around it. He kisses it. Logos kneels as the steward proclaims, I, Morgan, son of servant of the house Respicule, do hereby crown you, Logos, son of Joshua of the house Servantus, as king of the Calvary kingdom. Rise and rule in the way that you have been brought up to, that you might preserve your bloodline and the growing reach of his kingdom. Morgan's old rugged hands gently rest the crown upon the new king's head. His hands are filled with peaceful joy of his charge's end, and by its death does it birth forth the fruit of all that he had patiently and enduringly hoped for, a true king of the blood. Logos kisses Morgan's hands and proclaims, "You are oftentimes called risen, and justly so. For seeing as his servant should, I now see that you have never fallen to slumber in your oath. 21 years you have kept your eyes watchful unto his command. You did not waver in your charge, and for this may you forever be known as worthy. Go, and do all that pleases you. No man shall hinder you. Ask what you will of me, and it is yours. My work is ended, my oath is fulfilled, but I desire to never stop repaying my debt to your father. I ask only for this one thing. I pray you, my king, make for me a dwelling place in your father's village, beside your father's temple, that I might sit each day upon the temple steps and speak of your father's rescuing love to all who draw nigh unto it," he pleads. There is no pictures, or I'd do pictures. Logos is deeply moved by this. His eyes swell with tears. His heart overflows with a new grand love for this man, who has always greatly loved him, even when he did not deserve it. Standing up to meet him face to face, the new king passionately declares, "Even if the kingdom's treasury is depleted, you shall have the grandest home in all of the kingdom, one to rival even this very castle. And it shall be a birthright inheritance unto all of your bloodline from its completion until the end of this age. As I have spoken it, so shall it be forevermore." They embrace as a father and a son would. The great multitude of people clap their hands and sing. The air is filled with a sense of joyous victory as a new era of peace, love, and prosperity flow from the seat of the great throne on which Logos now reigns from. Logos walks over to the top of the many steps that lead up to the great throne. He closes his eyes and raises up his hands, taking in this long-awaited moment. He inwardly gives great thanks unto God as the people cheer and dance before him. Morgan moves into the crowd. "Why do you not stand beside Logos receiving glory?" a certain man from the crowd asks. With a humble heart, Morgan says, "I am in my rightful place among you. I am one of his people, here to praise him. It is time for me to quickly decrease, so that he may increase. For I have sat upon his throne for many years, and I have examined myself all the while, and have found myself wanting. He alone is king." The man smiles at Morgan's answer, realizing that the new king has called him worthy for a reason. Logos looks out anew upon his merry-making people, and is filled by the joy that is on their faces. "What shall be your first decree as king?" Morgan joyously shouts out. Logos has no need for pondering, for he has thought of this thing for many seasons. Opening his mouth with gladness, he decrees, "My first command as your king shall be to set this day as a day of thanks unto the Lord God. All who are in his kingdom shall raise up their hands and their voices to give fervent thanks unto him who has liberated us from the enemy. It is to happen this same day every year." Morgan smiles. He sees in Logos now all that he had hoped to one day see, every single day that he patiently raised him. "And what shall be your second decree as king?" Morgan gleefully asks. "My second command as your king shall be to commission a scribe to take down the full account of your recollection of my father, the rescuer from God." The young king decrees. Morgan's smile quickly fades. His mind overflows with every detail of the great man he once knew. His heart begins to break anew at the many thoughts of his greatest friend. Logos turns his happy eyes back to the many glad faces. Morgan turns his teary eyes away from all and onto the lonesome hollowness of the vacant hallways of Castle Golgotha. Images of all that he had witnessed so many years ago vibrantly flash into his mind as his feet take him to the great dining hall. "Go and make joyous celebrations in the streets. Feast this day in thanks to God," Logos shouts in joy to the people. With singing, the people dance their way out of the castle. Logos sits down upon the great throne. "Oh, that you could be here to witness this day, Father," he whispers. He closes his eyes and gives hearty thanks unto God for creating this day. Just as he is opening his eyes, a faint voice whispers, "Know me." He looks all about him and finds himself utterly alone. "Who said that?" he shouts in fear. "Know me," the faint voice whispers again. He rises. "Come forth," he screams. Deafening silence clouds his mind. He hastens toward the large hallway that leads out of the throne room. He nearly trips down the many steps that lead up to the throne as the faint voice yet again whispers, "Know me." His eyes dart to the threshold of the hallway, for it is there that the voice whispers. He cautiously advances towards the threshold, looking every which way in fear. As he passes through it, the voice whispers the same message again, but this time it is further down the hallway. He is wary as he follows the still whispering voice. The voice leads him to the hallway that goes into the great dining hall. He slowly follows. "Know me," the voice whispers anew. Anew. He sees the figure of a man, bowing his head in prayer, with his face towards the fire pit. The chair in which he sits faces away from the cautious young king. Logos's heart races, and his breath is stilled as he slowly approaches from behind the seated figure. "Know me," the figure whispers. He fearfully extends his hand to touch the seated man. "Know me," the man whispers again. Logos taps the man's head and pulls his hand back with great speed. Morgan opens his teary eyes and looks back. "Are you all right, my king?" Morgan asks as he takes in Logos's terrified face. You," Logos stammers. "All is well, my king. Have a seat and take a breath. Still your troubled heart and tell me what vexes you," he suggests. He takes a seat before him slowly and in wonderment. "What is the matter?" Morgan asks. While I sat upon the throne, a hidden voice whispered to me. Fearful, I followed the voice. I followed it unto you." "How did you throw your voice like that?" he replies. Morgan sits back in his chair. "It is time," he reveals. "What do you mean?" Logos asks. Morgan slowly leans forward. For 21 years he has watched for this certain hour to come. The voice that you heard in the throne room is the voice of your father, Joshua. The voice that you hear in this room is my own by his command, he reveals. Logos sits back in awe. His eyes bring forth tears of painful loneliness, commingled with tears of joyous revelation. He has heard his Father's voice with his own ears and will never forget the sound. How can this be? My Father is with God, he asks. It is the very fact that he is with God that makes it possible for you to hear his voice. For if he were not with God, he would be merely just another dead man. But because you heard his voice, it is now a proven truth to all that he is, was, and always shall be the living rescuer from God, Morgan proclaims. Halliday nods his head in understanding. Why were you whispering the same thing that my Father's voice was whispering, he asks. Not Halliday, Logos. Sorry, there was a name change. I forgot to write it. Let me reread that. Logos nods his head in understanding. Why were you whispering the same thing that my Father's voice was whispering, he asks. Just before your Father left this world, he touched the crown of my head, and because he was of God and spirit, and of Maharba and flesh, when he touched me, my mind was filled with his earthly memories, and Maharba's earthly memories. I'm going to pause right there. Maharba is the character in the second book. He's the lead character in the second book. All right. Joshua, as he ascended up to sit at God's right hand, he shut up the gate to these memories, and he revealed it to me that the hour you become king would be the self-same hour that he would give me the key to the gate unto these sealed memories, Morgan reveals. Logos's eyes widen as he eagerly asks, what is the key that opens the gate to my Father's memories? The key is a prayer, and the prayer is only 2 words, know me, he replies. That's what my Father's voice was whispering, he exclaims. Boy, this is taking a lot longer than what I thought it would. And that's what I was praying when you tapped me on the head. But the gate remains shut, Morgan sadly says. Logos becomes fidgety in his chair. He is overly anxious to hear the first-hand account of his father's life through the mouth of this memory bearer. You have raised me since I was a small boy. Why have you never told me of this before? Logos asks. It wasn't time for you to know of it. The crown did not rest upon your head yet. Ever vigilant, I kept my mouth closed until the appointed hour, he replies. Sorry, kids are crazy in the background. All right, here we go. Are you sure that you are ready to hear of your father's life? Morgan asks. Logos sits back in his chair and prepares his heart. You must understand that these are not my own memories. These are your father's memories, and I suppose that they will be spoken out of my mouth as if they are happening right now. Are you sure you're ready? He asks him again. I am ready, Logos says, breathing heavily. Morgan closes his eyes tightly in concentration. Know me, he whispers. A long moment passes. He opens his eyes and sadly says, the gate remains shut. Perhaps you are not concentrating hard enough. Try again. Logos encourages him. Concentrating as hard as he can upon God, Morgan prays again, and again he is denied. Morgan sits back in his chair in confusion. This is the appointed hour, I can feel it, he infers. Then why is the gate to these memories still shut? Halliday impatiently asks. Morgan shakes his head in perplexity. How hard is it to earnestly pray, know me, Logos says in frustration. Halliday, There was a name change, okay? The Lord showed me to do a name change, and I keep reading the old name. Sorry. Morgan sits back in his chair in confusion. This is the appointed hour. I can feel it, he infers. Then why is the gate to these memories still shut? Logos impatiently asks. Morgan shakes his head in perplexity. How hard is it to earnestly pray, know me, Logos says in frustration. Morgan's eyes widen as he quickly sits straight up in his chair. You have opened the way. How was I ever so blind? You are the key. After all, you are the Waymaker's son. Oh, yes, I can see them. It is becoming clear, Morgan exclaims. Logos begins to breathe heavily again as he intently listens to Morgan's voice. Prepare yourself. I am overtaken. My mouth is not my own, he utters. Logos perks up as Morgan's mouth opens to speak his father's first revealed memory. Now that's just the future part. That's the longest future part that there is in any of the chapters. That was like 9 pages, okay, bro? Now here we go. Now here's the other half of the storyline, which is there's the future 21 years with Logos and Morgan. Then there's the past 21 years in the past of Joshua. Okay. So all that stuff seemed kind of boring, but it was the formality that leads him from being a king. And when you read it for yourself, it's going to, you're going to have more imagination to it. And it's also being reproved. This is an older version. This isn't even a finalized version, but it's going to be reproved to make it more palpable. And, okay, but it's a very highly critiqued thing so far. So here we go. He's about to reveal the first memory. And here is the first memory. Now, this is first person's perspective from Joshua's eyes. It is a fine spring day. The flowers are all in blossom. A hint of lavender licks like a flame through each cool breeze. The sky looks as if a master artist had painted it the night before as we all slept. The warming sun is so bright and beautiful that it seems to make the grass glimmer like a sea of emeralds. In the distance, I can hear children's laughter as they frolic. And when I gaze close enough, I can see mice and rabbits happily scampering through the flowing fields of tall grass. As I leisurely stroll through the wondrous forest that surrounds my village, I close my eyes and deeply breathe in the joyful peace of this blissful state that seems to continuously wash over me with each new heartbeat. As I open my refreshed eyes, a jarring blast makes me instinctively grab for my sword. Before I am even fully awakened from out of this lovely dream, suddenly I am violently thrust back into the tragic reality of my life. I am a warrior in a war that has engulfed the entire Calvary Kingdom more generations ago than anyone wants to remember. We have been repeatedly besieged, generation after generation, by those certain flying demons that seem to dwell in the heavens. Every generation, they rain down war upon us. They are merciless man-eaters and risk all to have the taste of man's flesh upon their tongues. Their bodies are mostly fashioned in the same manner as a man's, so for this reason we call them sky cannibals. And now, as I have dared to sleep, they dare to attack. Brashly awakened from my rest by a excuse me, a little bit nervous. Brashly awakened from my rest by a loud blast and the clanging of the great bell alarm, I hastily throw on my garments and leather armor. I snatch up my sword and shield and bolt toward my front door. I burst out of my cottage to find The village square filled with frantic villagers dashing in all directions. Another blast, and a small group of the village square's sentries go flying in pieces. Arrows rain down from some ominously low clouds and onto the wild crowds that are fleeing towards the towards the cottages. Suddenly, great blasts rip open the roofs of a few cottages. The people see this and begin to flee toward the surrounding forest. Now, stillness from the low clouds. All I can hear are the screams of frightened and dying villagers. Without warning, a deafening horn begins to sound from the sky. Shrieks of terror cause panic to seize me. My body is frozen by the insanity of all of these gripping spectacles. My mind is utterly blank as I desperately try to think of what I need to do next. Silence again as my training forces my feet to run toward the warrior's watch house. My fellow warriors burst through the front door and meet me at its entrance. We all look up as we hear the dreadful sound of the sky cannibal's wings. The terrible sound of it is likened unto a great rushing waterfall. The early morning sun is greatly darkened as the flying demons disintegrate those low, ominous clouds with their wretched bodies. "To arms!" shouts Commander Heroilate. "Village sentries and archers guard the village. The rest of you are on me. To the forest!" he bellows. The great number of flying demons parts in two. The first half descends upon the village. The second half spreads out like locusts and heads toward the brims of the forest. We quickly break up into teams of about a dozen and spread out, heading in different directions toward the forest. We hover our shields over our own backs and heads as my party runs toward the southern end of the village. Arrows rain down all around us as we run in the manner that a snake crawls. The recruit to my front right falls, wounded from an arrow to the back of his knee. "No!" I shout at him as he moves his shield arm away from his back to pluck it out, the arrow from behind his knee. He is riddled with arrows when he does so. My left wrist is nearly shattered as my shield is slammed against my back from the direct hit of an arrow. I stumble forward, but I regain my footing. Out of fear, I quicken my pace. Just in front of me, Commander Heroilate takes an arrow to his left calf and tumbles forward. I quickly break off the arrow and help him up. In arms, we continue on into the forest together. Having witnessed the fate of that recruit, he shouts out in pain, "God bless you, my son." Commander Heroilate is Joshua's dad. We form a line and slow our pace to a jog. I can see the villagers about 100 yards ahead of us. They fearfully look toward the sky with logs and tree branches as weapons in their hands. Sweeping down like hawks, the flying demons land between us and the villagers. Their number is more than double ours. Yet this does not intimidate us, for they do not have desperation for survival burning within themselves as we do. Some wag their tongues with bloodlust and begin to slink slowly toward the terrified villagers, while entrancingly stalking their scent in the air, lustfully savoring every second of the hunt. The rest of the demons begin to advance in our direction with their long black swords drawn. Seeing those few demons entranced by flesh-defiling cravings, the commander screams, "Attack!" We unleash our swords from their scabbards and run towards them. In my frightened state of mind, it seems like all of the demons are heading straight for me. Before even a few breaths can be taken, the stragglers are roped back into the hole, and we all become an entangled, raging crowd of slashing foes. With the top of my shield at eye level, I begin to wildly swing my sword in their direction like an armored wasp. One draws nigh, and I hack its sword arm off. I run my blade through its belly and quickly pull it back out. It cries out a high-pitched squeal as it slams to the ground from the force of my trusty blade, this time piercing it through the heart. I retake my stance, but I am nearly floored by a charging demon. I bash it in the face with my shield. As it stumbles backward, I charge and delve my blade deep into the side, right like that, into the side of its neck, only being stopped by the top of its sternum. As I pull my sword back out, its tall, muscle-bound, pitch-colored body hardens and bends forward. It bares its shark-like teeth and lunges at my face. I shove the handle of my blade into its mouth and violently thrust downwards. As its jaw becomes unhinged, it falls forward. Its fiery red horns pierce deep into my right thigh. Ah! I scream out. That was not a convincing scream. But he screams out, ah. Ah! I scream out in agony as I feel every little tiny muscle begin to shred and convulse. My best friend, Cody, son of Aaron, cuts off the demon's head and swiftly plucks out the horns from my leg. I give out a great yelp as he does so. I fall to the ground, releasing my shield. Cody and my other good friend, Stephen, son of Jehuzer, guard either side of me as I frantically tear off my lower left trouser end and use it as a tourniquet on my wound. I wince in great pain as I slowly get up. I lamely jog toward my other friend, Josimus, son of Caiaphas, who is fighting next to Commander Heroilate. A demon gets ready to strike Josimus in the back with its bloody black blade. With all of my might, I throw my sword at the demon. My sword nails its mark and drives through its upper arm and into its ribcage. The demon lets out a ghastly howl as its left lung implodes. It crashes to the ground, clawing at the dirt and gagging up blood. I place my foot upon its pierced arm and maliciously retrieve my sword. I utterly abhor the sound of its wailing. I slowly bend forward, meeting its eyes, and give the wretched demon a death blow to the side of its head. I quickly look around to find that over half of the sky cannibals are dead, and we have only suffered the loss of two of our warriors. A great boldness leaps up into my breast as I charge at my next foe. Within a few short moments, we slay the remaining demons and suffer only one more fallen warrior. The small group of villagers remain at their place with no sky cannibals anywhere near them. The commander takes notice of this and boldly commands, "Let's fight our way through the forest towards the north end of the village. Advance!" I tighten my loose tourniquet and continue on behind the commander. Through the brush and trees, I see a long line of warriors and demons doing fierce battle. We charge, and by the noon hour, we regain the eastern forest. We suffer less than half the casualties that the demons suffer. We push on back toward the southern end of the village through the western forest. We meet about the same amount of resistance as we did in the eastern forest, but due to our swelling number, we take back the western forest quickly with minimal wounded and fallen warriors. We are like a raging wildfire utterly destroying everything in our path. By midday, the great forest is clear of all sky cannibals. With victory in sight, we mass at the southern end of the village and listen to the commander's orders. Form up into 3 equal parties, the commander Horoylate shouts. The party on the left shall advance through the west side of the village. The party on the right shall advance through the east side of the village. And the party in the middle shall advance through the village square, he boldly commands. When your party reaches the northern end of the village, split in 2 and assist the other 2 parties, he yells. God bless and Godspeed. Attack! He shouts as he turns his mighty face toward the village. We all bellow out a great battle cry and charge into the village like wild stampeding bulls. Commander Horoylate, Cody, Stephen, Josimus, and myself are all in the middle party, heading for the village square. On the other side of the 3 rings of cottages that encompass the very long village square, we can see through to the demons that are now feasting upon the dead villagers. Filled with great wrath and sorrow, I bolt ahead of all the others like a champion stallion. The demons rise up from their feasting and draw their swords. They do so with such pompousness that it thrusts me into a great rage, which causes me to throw down my shield and nearly cut the first demon in 2 with a single swing of my mighty sword. The rest of the warriors catch up to me and begin cutting down the wretches, while protecting the dead villagers as if they are yet living. We are all aflame with justice. With each blow we land, they get the deadly message that they should have never set their evil sights upon our mighty village. All of the village sentries are dead, and most of the archers are as well. Only a handful of them are still alive. They stand atop the great bell alarm tower, which is on top of the warriors' watch house, exchanging arrows with the demons who are in flight over them. A few rods into the village square, and the commander suffers a piercing strike to his lower belly. Father! I cry out in shock as I turn around in recognition of the sound of my father's voice as he yelps out. Protect the commander! I scream as I run to aid my father, who is far behind me. As he falls to his knees, Cody slashes the demon who stands over him down its back. I finally reach them, and with a single mighty blow I cut off the head of the demon and kick its wretched corpse away from us before its head can hit the ground. Warriors encircle and barricade the commander and myself as I kneel down to try to help him up. He is nearly on his feet when he suddenly collapses. His guts begin to spill out. I cautiously push them back in and hold my hands over the wound. To my astonishment, he does not make a sound. Can you breathe, Father? Can you speak? I ask him with a lump in my throat. I try desperately to seal the jagged wound with my hands, but I cannot fully halt the flowing blood. Yes, I can speak, but with great trouble, he whispers, as he balls up his fists. Tell me what to do, Father. I hastily reply. He vomits up blood. With despair in his voice, he sadly admits. With despair in his voice, he sadly admits, the village healer is dead. I saw a demon eating his corpse as we approached the village square. So what do I do, Father? I choke out while frantically looking all around for any type of help. There is nothing you can do, he mutters sadly. My eyes tear up as I begin to realize the validity of his words. God, please, I cry out. Taking my hand, he looks into my eyes and proclaims, "You are the commander now. Save the village, then present my sword to the king and request him for reinforcements." "No, father, I will not let you die," I sob as he begins to vomit up blood again. He pulls me close and slowly utters, "Listen to me. When reinforcements come, take them to Gethsemane village and preserve our bloodline. Do not rest until your heir is safely hidden." He pauses for a moment to speak over his desire to cry out and whispers, "Give me a final courtesy, so that I may go to my eternal rest with honor, by knowing that the hand of my loving son gave me my end, and not the hand of some wicked demon." By these words, I know that he is sure to die. But how can I possibly do such a thing? Wait, there must be another way, I desperately choke out. As I am saying this, my broken heart takes full notice of his continuous suffering, and my choice is made. I slowly put his hand on my own as I take up his sword. "Goodbye, father," I cry out. "Godspeed, my boy," he gurgles. I quickly yet gently thrust his sword into his heart. My whole body begins to shake as his becomes still. He looks up at the sky with a peaceful yet broken smile and gives up his spirit. I fall upon his chest, weeping and gnashing my teeth. Through my tears, I gaze upon my father's face and finally see the peace he once had with my long ago departed mother. I pull out his sword from his chest, which bears our house's crest, and slowly stand up. I look at the shocked faces of the sorrow-stricken warriors and ask aloud with a broken voice, "Will a few of you stay here to protect my father's body?" "We will proudly die to protect him," they all declare. I point to the two most wounded warriors and bid them to guard over him. "The rest of you are on me," I shout as I look toward the northern end of the village square. Looking once more upon the face of my fallen father, I close my eyes to this grand defeat. I open them again with a terrible sound of my lone, bellowing roar, which echoes like a great wounded lion's final battle cry. Filled with mighty sorrow, the whole of my warriors do the same. In the same way that a drop of rain joins a puddle, so do we join as one in wrathful grief. Bearing witness to this, the look upon the remaining demons' faces proves true to the melting of their dark hearts from crippling fear. We charge after them like ravenous beasts, ready to devour our prey. As our faces shine with madness, they cautiously fall back and in terror take to the air. I notice a fallen archer's bow and quiver just up ahead. I drop my father's sword and quickly take up that greatly desired weapon. My first couple of shots are wildly aimed and miss their mark. I hold my breath and steady my hands as I line up my last shot. I let loose and my arrow strikes one of the demons through its left wing, pinning it to its back. The vile wretch loses flight and hits the ground with great force. I throw down the bow and bolt toward the demon as it tries desperately to regain its wing and stand up. I can feel all of the other flying demons' eyes looking down upon me in shock as I tackle their kinsman and sit upon its belly. In this moment, the madness of my distraught mind mingles furiously with the indignation of my broken heart, and I am more than myself. My fingers are likened unto metal talons as they tear into the flesh of the terrified demon's face and chest. The demon grabs wildly for my face. I take hold of its arm and bite off two of its hard black fingers. I twist hard until its arm snaps. It cries out and violently shakes like a bucking horse. I grip the sides of its face with my rending hands and plunge my thumbs into its eyes. It writhes and squeals as the tips of my thumbs meet the rounded bones behind its eyes. I scream out in victory as I tighten my grip and twist so hard that I nearly tear its head off as I break its neck. The demon goes limp as I rise up. I quickly gaze up at the remaining demons hovering high above me. Their eyes watch my every move. I run back towards the bow that I had dropped. Seeing that I greatly desire their fall as well, they hastily fly off. I turn to go find my father's sword and realize that all of my warriors are staring at me in awe. As I walk past them, they bow. I turn to notice this, and Cody fearfully proclaims, "Hail, Joshua, son of Heroilate, our mighty and victorious commander." I recover my father's sword and return to his body. I relieve the two wounded warriors guarding him and say unto all of my warriors, "All of you, go help the other warriors take back the rest of the village. I will remain here with my father." They scatter in all different directions, searching out the enemy by the sounds of battle. I begin to weep again as I bandage up my father's wounds with my shirt and place his hands across his chest. I pray sobbing prayers unto God to lift up my father's spirit and to embrace him as a son in glory. I cannot help but just sit there looking upon his peaceful face as the sound of my warriors' mighty shouts of victory echo far off in the distance. Glimpses of the horrific battle flash in my mind and remain in continuous rotation. I am tormented by the sight of horns thrusting into my thigh, my father's guts oozing out, and my thumbs plunging ever so violently into the eyes of that demon. The sun begins to set as the warriors lead the villagers back into the village. The villagers return to their homes and begin to put out the fires and repair a little of the damage. Some of the warriors help them. Cody, Stephen, and Josimus lead about 24 warriors over to me. I look up at them and command, "Cody and Stephen, you two stay here and assist me with my father's body. Josimus, take half of these warriors and gather up all of the fallen villagers and warriors. Place them in front of the watch house. The rest of you, gather all of the demons' corpses and pile them up in the middle of the village square." "Yes, Commander," they all reply. As night falls, so does a little bit of the village's fear. Small groups of warriors take up positions around the brims of the great forest. A warrior sits upon nearly every cottage porch. We are trained to do these certain things in the event that our village comes under attack. It gives those who are full of fear a small sense of peace to see us all around, protecting each one of them. These small steps take crying down to whimpering and yelling down to talking. We carry my father's body to my cottage to prepare him for showing. We clear out my main room To make more space for viewers, we remove and clean his armor. I delicately clean the dirt and blood off of his face and body, and gently close up his wounds. With shaking hands, I dress him in his finest garments, the ones he wore as he laid my mother to rest when I was a small boy. I put his now polished armor upon him, and place him on the table which is in the middle of my main room, as I lay his shield upon his breastplate. I pause with mourning to take in this last magnificent image that he now portrays. I light the incense and candles that are placed around the room by my two sorrow-stricken friends. I lay a crimson rose beside my father's head. This certain rose was my mother's favorite flower. I can still remember my father gathering them from the fields to lift my mother's heart after one of their arguments. I turn away from my thoughts and say to Cody and Stephen, "Command a few of the heralds to tell all of the villagers to look toward the middle of the village square. I will meet all of you there soon." "Yes, Commander." Sorry. This thing is huge, man. "Yes, Commander," they reply in perplexity as they turn to leave. Closing my front door behind them, I tear off my armor in sorrow. I fill myself with righteous rage as I steady my thoughts and become prepared to give the people a lifting speech. Only wearing my trousers and my boots while carrying my father's sword, I make my way toward the village square. The pain in my thigh is great, but I forcefully shut it out of my mind as I draw nigh the stinking pile of demon corpses that are like a statue of victory. I arrive and say, "Josimus, go fetch a few jugs of lamp oil from the watch house and bring them unto me quickly." As he runs off, I prepare myself to speak to the entire village. I look out and slowly turn in circles to speak to every one of them. "People of Axe Village, hear me now. The sky cannibals attacked us without cause and slayed our own beloved kin. But we rose up by the might of God and drowned them in their own blood." I shout out. The people raise up their fists and bellow out cries of mournful victory. "They came to give us this message, that they can kill and defile us whenever they so choose, and we sent them fleeing in terror with our own message, that we are not goats for the slaughter, but instead lions with a God-given power to send them back to the eternal pit from whence they spawned," I bark. As the warriors begin to shout with zeal, I roar out in fervency, "Tonight, let us send them another message. Tonight, let us show them what happens to demons that dare draw nigh our mighty village and fall by our vengeance." I pause for a moment as Josimus comes running with the jugs of lamp oil. "Pour them on the pile," I command him. I grab a lit torch and go back to speaking to the village. "Let the might of victory run rampant in your hearts as we watch these demons' corpses become ash," I shout as I hold the torch high up for all to see. As I throw the torch onto the pile, the village fills with chanting, cheering, singing, and even crying. I remain silent as I slowly return to my cottage, for to me, this is not victory. It is a terrible blow that lands us only at surviving. I shut my front door behind me and become nearly deaf to the sounds of the village. I place a table next to the table that my father lies upon. I wince in pain as I lay down upon it. Laying face to face with him, I whisper, "Hear that, Father? The people rejoice in your victory." Great sorrow embraces me as I cry myself to exhaustion and finally to sleep. But I will not dream this night, for there shall only be lonely darkness as sleep carries me to morning. Whoa! Okay, so that was 23 pages. That was 23 pages. That's chapter 1. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope anybody who wants to invest might want to invest and might be able to get to see. I mean, the story gets so much better, bro. Like unimaginably better. You don't even know. That first what is it? The first chapter is like a formality. You got to build up the characters and give them, reveal their names subtly, and you got to. It's really formal. The first chapter is always formal because you got to build the atmosphere, and it's real like not bland. I mean, it was action packed, but when if you read it for yourself, you would feel more. You would have more imagination to it, But yeah, if you're interested, that's just chapter 1. Like, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a chapter that's like 10 chapters ahead or something to give you guys, show you how much more amazing it gets. That's just, you have to understand the first chapter is like a formality. It's not really like let me just give you a quick explanation. The first chapter is like a formality. You have to kind of build the atmosphere within the first chapter and all the main and basic characters. Okay, the characters. But I wanted to do it in a way that was really different, that was really interesting. So I started it off with the crowning of a king, and that's the beginning of the future timeline. And the past timeline is a great and terrible battle within a small village. So I think that's pretty amazing as a formal way of starting off a book with a formal first chapter. So yeah, it gets a lot better than that, and it's about 300 pages. I'm not going to read any more. I'm just going to read one more chapter, probably next time if I get, some likes or something, and maybe some responses on investors. And I'll read another chapter to show you guys some really good stuff. I mean, like some really fantastic stuff, okay? I hope you guys liked it. Share this around. Follow me on Facebook. And on my Facebook page, there's a link to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is called Reality Check. Go there and subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Also, there's a GoFundMe page. There's a GoFundMe link on my Facebook page that you can go to if you would like to donate to help get this evangelistic book published. And we're going to take the world by storm. And you're going to understand that. I mean, this was a pretty good chapter. It's because it's the basic beginning chapter. You got to really, you're crash coursing your way through the entrance of a brand new world and everything, and dual timelines. There's 2 timelines in this thing. So pretty incredible stuff, and it's pretty awesome. So that was the first chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you want to know more. And I'm going to read I keep repeating myself, I'm sorry. I'm going to read another chapter, just one more, maybe tonight or tomorrow. Try to upload it and get it done with. Okay, guys, you know how to get a hold of me. I have been Pastor Morgan, and you have been a fantastic audience. You want to know why you're so fantastic? Is because this is pre-recorded, and I can't hear any of your scoffing. So, critics, I'm ready to hear it, bro. Shoot me down. And just so you know, this is not the final piece. This is the edited version. Not edited. It's just it's got edits in it. Like, I'll flip through the pages and show you. Like, it's got huge editing marks. You see those blotted out places? That's because this is the rough draft. And I really don't want to give too much stuff away from the final draft, like what's going to be published, because there's some changes to it, and it's a lot. It's better than what I just read you, but it's not dramatically different. It's pretty much the same basics, just some of the words are different, and it's more elegantly flowing and stuff. So that's the way it is. And I don't repeat so many grammatical dramatizations within there. Within that, you'll see when you read the book, when you buy it. Okay, so yeah, if you're interested, let me know. I'm here. Let's get on with it. Jesus super loves all of you, and I super love you as well. No, wait. Jesus infinitely loves all of you, and I super love you as well. This might not seem like an evangelistic book right now, but that's only because it's the first chapter. There's 19 other chapters. And if you are really strong in understanding the Bible, if you've read it and you're almost pastor level, you will have heard many things that I've read so far that tie into what the Holy Bible says. It's a symbolic image of the New Testament, and many things. Like at the very beginning when I first started reading, and he says when Morgan leaves, he's the steward of the crown. He goes down into the crowd, and the one certain guy asks him, "Why do you come down into the crowd? Why don't you stand up there by the king?" And he says, "I must decrease, and he must quickly increase." That's what John the Baptist says. When they ask who should we follow, you or this Jesus, and he says, "You follow him. I must decrease, and he must increase." So you see, there's lots of different tie-ins. It's really beautiful, and it's that way throughout the entire book. And we weave Christian principles throughout. I weaved Christian principles and aspects and everything from the Holy Bible and everything that you would know as a Christian within the storyline, so that those things are what's popular, and that becomes super popular. And because it's such a dramatic war story mixed with a love story mixed with a coup within a government, there's so much stuff going on in this book. Let me tell you. And there's demons, and there's warriors, and there's giant battles, and then there's single combat, and it's crazy, bro. Like, you don't even know. And then, oh my God, I can't even describe it, dude. Like, the things that happen later on in the book, it's like incredible. And here's the thing. It's not like any of the other books. It's not like the movies that you see out right now. That's why it's so fantastic. It is literally what it would be like if you were there going through it yourself. That's what it is. You are the main character. That's how the book reads. When you read it, if you read it really taking in everything you read, you will feel like you are actually there. When he gets wounded and stuff, and he has to retie the tourniquet and everything, you would never see that in an action movie. You know what I'm saying? And it says how he winced as he laid down on the table to meet his dad face to face, and how the dad was puking up blood. Like, that doesn't happen in action movies. You get what I'm saying? This is a realistic book. And when you read the entire thing after it gets published, you'll see how realistic it is. Like, it's really crazy. I go into really deep detail on what happens. It's pretty fantastic. And it's like being there for real. And so I hope you guys are interested, and I hope you hit me up. This is just book number 1. My goal is 5 books. I'm on book number 3 right now. So if you're interested, let me know. All right? Have an amazing day. And as always, bless the King, who is Christ Jesus alone. God, Elohim altogether, but, Christ Jesus. All right, super love you guys.